Good evening, Assalamu alaikum rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and welcome back to News in Focus. Of course, Alhamdulillah, we had a beautiful and brilliant G20 broadcast that took place over this weekend, and we thank you, the viewer, for sharing this journey with us, which was Mzansi Welcomes the World. We are now back with News in Focus on a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. And of course, while that period was occurring, Russia and Ukraine, the war continues to rage on. Overnight, strikes between both Kiev and Moscow saw 9 people being killed as teams from Ukraine and the United States sought to rework a ceasefire plan. Russian missiles and drones targeted Ukraine's capital for yet another night, killing 6 people. Meanwhile, Russian officials said 3 people were killed and at least 16 injured in a major Ukrainian drone attack in southern Russia. Joining me now to take this conversation forward, I'd like to welcome back Ivan Us, who is the Chief Consultant for the National Institute for Strategic Affairs based in Kiev. Ivan, thank you so much for joining us here on News in Focus on Hilaal TV. Always good to have you on.
Greetings to you, Fakras. Thank you for invitation, and of course, greetings to our audience.
No, it's an absolute pleasure. Ivan, I think for probably the 3.5 years that this war has gone on, last night was probably one of the most deadliest in Kiev. Just give us a breakdown of what had happened, because this really seemed to be fierce drone attacks that were coming from the side of Russia.
Yeah, of course, Fakras, it was hardest night, but largely it was hardest night for me personally, because one of the drone hitting the building situated not far away from my residential building. So of course at the night I hear the explosion, but I could not say that it was hardest night for Kiev at all, because we several nights have when Russian rockets destroyed residential building, multi-level residential building, and of course, unfortunately, quantity of people who died there was larger, because today, as of now, actually we know about 7 persons murdered in Kiev during the night attack. 4 of them, it's drivers at the logistical center, and 3 died in the residential building in one of Kiev district. Not near to me, because according to information that I know from the building that close to my building, only 1 injured person. But as we analyzed all this practically 4 years of full-scale war, there were several moments when Russia absolutely destroyed multi-level buildings, and as I said, it was more than 30 or 40 persons who died in these buildings. So, of course, it was very hard moments, and of course we have a lot of tragedies during 4 years of war. Even several days ago, probably 1 week, Russian rocket hit the residential building in Ternopil, and 37 persons reported to be murdered there. So a lot of people, of course, and we understand that unfortunately, when we have a war, civilians constantly die, and when there are a lot of hits on the big cities, in Kiev where I'm living, or Kharkov, or Odessa, or Mariupol, we still don't know all information about Mariupol because Russia controls it, but the quantity of civilians who was murdered there at the beginning of full-scale war, unfortunately, it could be several thousands of people.
Yeah, I think that the thing, Ivan, is that it's not just obviously Kiev that's being hit. There's Kharkiv, there's the Donbas region. There's many others where the obviously fierce fighting is going on. And I guess, and we will be touching on it, after the break with regards to this proposed peace deal, that while these negotiations are happening, it's safe to say the fighting is getting much more fierce than we've ever seen during this war.
Yes, of course, but every time when you think that you're close to win this war, you press more seriously, or when you understand that you could lose something, because frankly speaking, the war of Russia against Ukraine turned into a so-called war of attrition, where economy played even sometimes more important role. With all respect to militant people, with all respect to people who are at the front line, economy played a lot. And I think that now Russia started more hard attack for Ukraine, because they're facing with enormous problem in their economy. Because yes, Ukraine so faced with this problem, but Ukraine has allies. Our European partners help to us. Japan, Canada, even the United States of America, with all limitation from Donald Trump, US still with us. As for Russia, Russia has Northern Korea, and Russia has Belarus. Of course, Russia like to say that China helped to them, but China is not the country that will actually help to Russia, because China want to receive something, but not to get something. That's why Russian economy, as I said, they faced with enormous deficit of the budget. They increase taxes. They create new fees for their population. Even inside Russia, there is a joke that they are moving to a situation when Russians will pay for the air that they breathe. Because, for example, last innovation in Russian economy, that they will pay a special tax if you're buying some gadget. So some technical device, for that you should pay. Then you should pay if you're using credit card. So I think that all those problems, of course, negatively influence on society, and Russian government, that they should demonstrate victories on the front line. They should demonstrate that they press on Ukraine, because without this pressure and seeing problems in local economy, they understand that they losing actually background in their own country, because people inside Russia asking that you start this war. We are in the fourth year of this full-scale war. We have big problem in economy. It is decrease of salaries. It is people now working in, for example, automobile building industry of Russia. People working not 5 but 4 days per week, because decreased salary. In some companies, even 3 days per week. So some companies fired approximately 10% of their personnel. Even companies like Ural Vagon Zavod, that is a military production company, and people asking that we don't see a result, but we are losing jobs, we're losing money. So that's why government should demonstrate something. That's why the Russian attack become more severe.
Ivan, one final question before we go to the break. It's something I read up on yesterday. There seems to be a corruption scandal that is happening in Ukraine. It says here on November the 10th, the Ukrainian anti-corruption authorities, they're known as NABU, revealed that a close associate of Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky were allegedly involved in a scheme to embezzle $100 million from Ukraine's energy sector. My question to you is, with this in mind, and obviously these are allegations, would we potentially see a closer into this war than we would have seen probably a year or a year and a half ago?
Of course, corruption scandal make a very bad advertisement to Ukraine. I think that the pressure that we now have from the United States of America, first of all, based on the weakness of our government due to this corruption scandal, because every time when we reveal corruption in every country, and corruption exists in every country in the world, you know that Transparency International, it's a ranking of the countries according to their attitude to corruption. The best countries that live without corruption, practically, is Denmark, but they don't have 100 of 100 points. They have 90 from 100. It means actually 10% of corruption exists even in the best country in this, meaning Denmark. Ukraine situated on the 105th position from 180 countries. So we close to bottom of the list. Nevertheless, for example, Russia 156, or that is, I like to mention Hungary, that accused Ukraine in corruption. That is a country of the European Union. Hungary actually situated at the 85th position. So, of course, better than Ukraine, but not so, I couldn't say that they so better compared to our country according to the points that they received. So, of course, corruption, it's problem. I agree with that. Of course, it's negatively influence on attitude to Ukraine. It could influence on the position of our partners to support Ukraine in future periods. But on the other hand, I talked with a representative of the Atlantic Council at one of the main think tanks in the world, and he said that look at the corruption during the wars of the United States of America. So in Ukraine, we talk about hundreds of millions of dollars. In time of American wars, it probably was billions of dollars. That's why everyone like to show on corruption, but unfortunately, reality of this world that it's present in every country, and the task, if it's hard to eliminate it, at least task to limit it. So, nevertheless, we will see how the future events will go on. Of course, it's question to President of Ukraine, Vladimir Zelensky, to punish actually people who used a good relationship with him in their private interest and who built corruption on the fact that they are close to the president. That's why every time in Ukraine, we always cite a former Prime Minister of Singapore, Lee Kuan Yew, who said that if you want to be a good ruler, you should arrest your 3 friends. And you demonstrate to all people that even your friends could be under procurement, could be punished, and they should not think that they're untouchable only because they're your friends. That's why, unfortunately,
Ivan?
Ukrainian president. Yes.
Ivan,
yes.
I have to stop you there because we have to go to the break. But
Okay.
after the break, obviously, as negotiations continue to end the war between Russia and Ukraine, the European Union and the United States are playing an active role with regards to this. My conversation with Ivan continues after the break. Welcome back to News in Focus. I'm still in conversation with Ivan Usus, coming to us from Kiev in Ukraine. Ivan, the negotiations as they stand at this very moment, when you listen to Russia and its foreign minister, Lavrov, he's saying that the spirit of Alaska, where of course Vladimir Putin and Donald Trump had met, needs to be maintained. Whereas the European Union is saying that there needs to be new terms given the intensity of the fighting that is happening. US President Donald Trump, the last time I spoke to you, both you and I had thought that we probably would have had a deal that was happening 3 months on. It hangs by a thread. What is the viewpoint from residents in Kiev right now with regards to how they potentially see this peace deal going ahead?
In Novokras in Ukraine, we have big discussion about the authorship of this plan, because when it appeared for the first time with 28 items, actually in Ukraine, all people said that this peace plan was prepared in Moscow, and even some phrases in this peace plan, it was close to Russian understanding than to US understanding. For example, Russia always liked to repeat that there are a lot of fascists in Ukraine. And we always said that, excuse me, but there are fascist people who support fascist ideology in Russia, or Nazi even ideology in Russia, but not in Ukraine. But Russia liked to accuse Ukraine at that moment. And of course, at first, the Ukrainian reaction was negative, and it was very right step from Ukrainian president, who said that, okay, if you use this plan in the moment of our weakness due to corruption scandals that we mentioned at the end of the first part of our program, so probably it will be good if Ukrainian people respond to the US president, whether they want this plan or no. So yes, President Zelensky put responsibility on Ukrainian people. It was absolutely correct step, because when he accused of not asking Ukrainian people what to do, now he do that. And then we start to analyze those propositions according to law approach. A lot of parts of this 28-item plan, they actually violated existence in international legislation. They ignored the UN Charter and some other rules, and lawyers made step-by-step review of those plans and said that from the law perspective, it should not exist. And if you go to the court with appeal to this plan, court said, oh, it's a legal one. That's why I think that, of course, probably from Ukrainian perspective, Russia gives this plan to US. Donald Trump don't pay much attention on this plan and said, okay, let's do something. And Steve Witkoff, who actually was with this plan, start a statement that it's Donald Trump proposition, Donald Trump support him. But when Donald Trump received criticism, both from Ukrainian side, European side, representative of Democratic Party in US, and the most important, representatives of the Republican Party in the United States, because they had said to him that, oh, that is a legal thing, because according to local US legislation, if the other country gives proposition to the United States, US could not present this proposition as itself, or they should have law expertise at the Department of State and in the Congress. But there was no law expertise in both Departments of State and Congress. That's why it's a legal document, because it's violated the local US legislation. That's why a lot of people, including, for example, Lindsey Graham or Mitch McConnell, it's two senators from Republican Party, said that we should understand who is the author. Europeans made the same position. Donald Tusk, Prime Minister of Poland, said that we should understand what we're discussing. If we're discussing Russian plan, we don't think that it's a good idea. Russia starts this war, and now we're discussing a plan proposed by Russia. But as for me, for Ukraine, this plan could be needed just a little bit to close this corruption scandal, because we said that, if we talk a lot about it, we're in weak position and we can lose the war. But
Ivan,
for US,
Ivan,
yes.
So I want to get this question in, because obviously the European Union is saying there needs to be more defense for Ukraine. I've watched various other broadcasters, and many Ukrainian citizens have said that they feel a sense of uncertainty with the European Union, because as much as there's been sanctions against Russia when it has come to energy and other sectors, there hasn't been a firmer stance on pressuring Vladimir Putin to go ahead and create a peace deal. So what is the take from a European Union perspective, Ivan?
I think that it's a big controversy inside European Union. You should understand that on the one hand, European Union, of course, supports Ukraine. And European Union understands the threat that comes from Russia to them. They understand that the war will not over in Ukraine. War will be in the Baltic countries, that is a part of the European Union, in Poland, and so on and so forth. But on the other hand, as Donald Trump actually said several days ago, Europe want to have good relationship with Russia. I mean, trade relationship, first of all, with Russia. You know that for the first 7 months of this year, European Union paid to Russia practically $20 billion, $19.8 billion for goods from Russia, primarily its energy goods. And you see that every time when our partner said that it should be total trade embargo on the relationship with Russia, European Union say no, we're not ready for that. We need to purchase a lot of goods from Russia. We want to sell some goods in Russia. So it's a problem of our times that a lot of politicians, they think about their economic interests and not thinking about the fact that actually they should press on the countries that creates menace to them. So that's why, in time of Lenin, was a good joke that we will kill the capitalists from the bullets which we purchased from them. The same situation now happening in Europe, that on the one hand, they actually criticize Russia, on the other hand, they give them money. And the money that they give to Russia actually turned into these bullets that in future can create a big problem to European Union when Russia finally decided to attack European countries. I don't think that it could be in a long period of time. It could be in short perspective. Much depends on the future of war in Ukraine. That's why Europe is interested that Ukraine don't lose this war. And Ukraine was let's call it so, the wall that defends Europe from Russian Federation.
Ivan, when I speak to you again, and hopefully that would happen soon, we will be speaking of a peace deal that has been concluded. Do you as Ukrainians have confidence that Donald Trump, who sits in the most powerful position in the world, can conclude the deal despite his arm being twisted by Vladimir Putin during that Alaska summit?
You know, Fakraz, I'm not sure that Trump is ready because Trump liked to make the good statement, but we have a feeling that he wants to have the Nobel Prize. He wants to win Nobel Prize, and for him, the main question is not just end of the war, that justice actually dominate. He needs just a fast end of the war, and he don't think about justice. And for Ukrainian perspective, when they write in this initial version of plan that you should forget about all crimes committed by Russia, you should decrease your army. You know that the best guarantee of security, it's your army. It's not the Article 5 of NATO or some other allies. It's your own army, because if you have a good army, no one will attack you. And even if attack, received a good response. That's why this proposition of this plan, Ukraine, one of the first things that we said, that we will not decrease our army, we will not recognize our territories captured or annexed by Russia. And then we are not ready to say that we forgot about all crimes committed by Russians. And we are not ready to say that the Russian frozen money should be refreezed, because it's a good lever of influence on Russia, that if you want to return to normal relationship with all countries in the world, if to eliminate sanctions, stop this war. You could not eliminate sanctions and be in this war. At first, stop the war, and after that, we will start, or European Union, first of all, start to eliminate the sanctions. But even that doesn't mean that European Union return to purchasing the energy products from Russia, because according to agenda of European Union, starting from the year 2028, they will not buying Russian gas, oil, and some other energy products, and that's actually the result of Putin war.
Ivan, I have to stop you there because we are running out of time. Always good to have you. Thank you so much for joining us.
Yes, thank you, Fakas. Thank you.
That's Ivan Us, who is a chief consultant for the National Institute for Strategic Affairs based in Kiev in Ukraine. After the break, I'm going to be chatting with Muaz Kasu. They just had a General Council meeting over the weekend, the big discussions with regards to the Nusuk app and whether or not SOAK still has a role to play with regards to this. We'll have more for you after this break.